So this is the Town of Woodbridge regular, well, actually, it's a special Board of Finance meeting because our regularly scheduled meeting had to be rescheduled due to lack of a quorum. So this is a special meeting of the Woodbridge Board of Finance, Tuesday, October 24th, 2017. Welcome tonight to our Deputy First Selectman, filling in for Beth.
Welcome, Mika.
Thank you.
And the first item on the agenda is public comments. Tony?
Thank you, Matt. The report here. So what I did for this report is this is for the first quarter of the fiscal year. And what I did was I based the report on the executive order that's in effect from the governor's office, which was October 1st, when that went into effect. So the big adjustment here is that the executive order has this reduction in state aid of about $915,000. So that's the first thing to note here is that reduction in state aid. This is, of course, we haven't heard anything official about what's the final budget will be.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what would impact, this is how our year would be if this was the budget. And there's a little bit of interest income that's doing well, but the majority of the deficit is from intergovernmental revenue. So that you'll see there's a budgetary deficit of about $530,000. And the other item in this report is the surplus funds that the town will receive from Amity, and that's $553,671. So what I did for this analysis is I reserved, as we always do in the budget process, the amount we have in this year's budget, I reserved for next year's budget, so that there is no change in next year's budget in terms of an automatic deficit. So we don't have a change in next year's budget. That, of course, can be changed any way you want, but we typically try to do that so that we don't start the year with a deficit.
Okay.
So that would leave $332,000 remaining that we would recognize this year as revenue, and deficit of $530. So keep in mind that we also have a $400,000 fund balance allocation. So that's basically a $900,000 reduction in our fund balance. And so that's assuming we don't ask departments for cuts mid-year. The state has done that, and that's something that we could do. And so that drops our fund balance as a percentage of our budget to about 9.25. Currently we're at about 11.25, maybe a little higher, 11.5. So that's how that would impact that. Now, of course, as we've discussed in the past, that's why you have a fund balance.
Correct.
Right.
So that you can take a one-time hit like that
Yes.
and be able to
Work through it.
Adjust. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I remember that was an issue a while back where, about our fund balance.
Yeah.
So,
Well, based on everything you hear, this probably isn't going to happen.
I hear something new every day, but yeah,
Well,
that's probably.
Not only do they have a budget which will not be as bad as this.
Right.
They're also preparing to override a veto.
Correct,
They're
right.
Making sure they
Right.
have enough.
That's correct, yeah.
So and it looks, from what I've heard anyway, it looks like they're in pretty good shape that way. So we'll see.
That's very possible that this
Yeah.
is not even close, but this
Yeah.
is the latest that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
It
for
would-
presenting it that
sure,
way.
yep.
It's very helpful.
Any questions for Tony? I would say this is the bleakest possibility.
Right.
I don't think this will come.
The only other item that has come up, which I don't think is an issue anymore, is because this is basically most of our revenue. We get like a little over $1 million, except for town road aid, which is for roads, which is borrowed anyway, so they typically won't cut that. But the only other thing that could impact this more significantly is the issue with the teacher's pension, but I hear that that's not on the table this year.
We'll see.
Whether that comes back or not, I
It's a
don't know.
big secret. The
Right.
federal government's tax,
Right,
wonderful
right.
tax reform that's going to mess up everybody in Connecticut is not on the table.
could spend days talking about that.
Yeah. No idea how to,
So that's where we are.
anyhow, okay. 2017 audit status.
We've done a week of field review, and they have one more week of field review. Basically, this is the time of the year where I present our final financials, and they will look through all of our accounts, and they will test receivables and payables and purchase orders, and they'll take a random sample of usually the higher ones and the ones that are more expensive, that are higher in value, and they'll test them to make sure that it's booked in the right year, the approvals are in place, all that sort of stuff. And once they do that, they went over to the Board of Education, and they do the same thing there. And once that happens, we just wrap up some loose ends, fixed assets, for instance. I have to put together our fixed asset register and present that. So that's we have still to finish that. And then usually they have a draft audit to us by, I want to say, Thanksgiving. So that's our current timetable.
So we're
Good shape, yeah. No issues so far, and no adjusting entries.
okay. We'll let Sandy handle Board of Ed financial
Okay.
report.
And I have no state budget update.
And no
I was
state-
hopeful when I put this on the agenda that there would be one.
I'm sure next week. FY19 budget guidelines, Tony.
So the capital budgets are beginning to come back. It's a little difficult to. I mean, we've started meeting with and discussing with some of the department heads about the operating budget. It would be more helpful if we had a final budget amount
Sure.
from the state, so we knew exactly what the impact was and what type of shape we're in. But nevertheless, we are still, I think it's a good exercise to work with department heads to identify ways to become more efficient in general, and also to look at different functions, different programs. That's a hard thing for some departments to do, because some of them they've been doing for a long time, or they feel like it's something that they value. At the same time, it's something that I think the boards should take a look at and see, which programs, how many people attend each programs, or what type of service, and how valuable is it. I keep going back to the transfer station, and so, how many people attend on average on a Tuesday? And is it worth it keeping it open on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, or do you reallocate resources to other things? Those are the types of things.
So
that I
are
encourage.
you asking these questions specifically of
Each
both
department.
department
Yep.
heads and also for boards or commissions to consider?
So usually, I usually interact with the department head.
Okay. which
And
is
then
fine.
in some cases, usually the department head will discuss it with the board or commission. I give suggestions on things I think could be, but if anyone else has any
Right.
suggestions or,
So, I think a big opportunity may be to look at the fitness center. And I don't know that the Recreation Commission is actually looking at that.
so if there are ones that you think are a good idea, that's one I'll put down.
Okay.
Let me know, and I'll make sure that that's on the
Right.
list.
Well, and I think it deserves consideration in both directions, because there may be things that we don't know or understand about it.
Certainly.
But I
Yep.
think that we need to look at how many residents are actually using it. Does it actually cost us?
Right.
And is it something that we should continue? Because there are physical plans that are associated with that as well. And
Right.
so that's a big question.
Yep. Okay.
I know they have that information. I was at the meeting yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and they have all the details in regards to the attendance and the costs that you just referred to. So
Okay.
it's more a matter of now weighing it against the value against the actual expense. But certainly that information is there. They're ready,
Okay.
and
That's
they're looking at
great.
it from a budget standpoint.
That is really terrific.
I think last year when we brought it up, they had already looked at it and started to cut. They
Correct.
realized-
That's correct,
they
yeah.
realized that
Yeah. So there are different functions in different areas
Yeah.
that we're taking a second look at.
Mhm.
IT is another.
Mhm.
Some areas in human services,
Yeah.
the library.
Mhm.
Has there been an identification of the different areas such as IT that are being used by different departments in terms of consolidating and
There has.
realizing some savings?
There's been a lot of discussion on that,
Okay.
and we're actually making some good progress on some of those. And I think IT is an easy one to
Right.
do, and so we're in talks with possibly combining with other entities
Mhm.
so that you know,
Beyond the town.
Correct.
Okay.
right.
Okay.
So it would be like
Yep.
I'll give you an example.
Mhm.
The town of South Windsor does IT for Tolland and Stafford Springs and a couple other towns.
Mhm.
And so they all have a joint services agreement that they all use, and it works out very well for all the entities involved.
Mhm.
So that's a model that seems to work well. They've been doing it for about 4 years now, 4 or
Mhm.
5 years.
Mhm.
So that's a model we're looking at here.
Okay.
In connection with that, do they use an outside vendor or they use
No, the town.
the South Windsor
Correct.
is the vendor?
It's
in that
the
situation?
the town has the staff that they pay in the town budget,
Mhm.
and then they have a shared services agreement where the staff then goes to, say, each town
Different
on
locations.
Just like the animal shelter.
Right.
right, exactly, yeah,
It's the same thing.
yep. And it seems to be working well in all accounts. So
Except instead of dog bites, it's
it's,
dad
it's
bites.
right.
I got it.
It's bits and bites.
Anything else, Tom?
No, that's it. So if you have anything,
Yeah.
we've also mentioned it to the
Yeah, we
selectmen.
mentioned
If
it.
there's anything that comes up, just let us know.
Okay.
Okay, we have one funding request, which is a line item transfer. And it is, I guess it's transferring revenue thing. Why don't you run through it?
Sure. So the Government Access TV had transferred a while back some funds to help start this process here.
Mhm.
And so the additional $4,800 is requested to help upgrade the some items for the broadcasts. Who is here? Can
That's
explain
all
in more
new,
detail.
that's all new
but
stuff, yeah.
yeah, you can see we have the cameras that are
Yep.
automatic here.
Great.
And so we're hoping to, one of the main things we'd like to do is to help with some loudness issues
What?
and the cables that are on the floor, to get rid of some of those cables under the floor so that people don't trip on them and they're not in the way.
Okay. Any questions on that? I would like to move acceptance of line item transfer 1718-04 in the total amount of $4,806. Second. Yeah, discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Karen, I think this is the original in my package.
No, everybody's got a blue ink.
Oh, it's blue ink?
Yeah,
Oh.
it's just a color copy.
Oh, okay, where's the original?
I probably have it right here.
Okay. I was gonna say, I saw blue ink, I said, I got the original. Wow.
Fooled you.
Fancy.
So are we just not transferring the whole amount because we're not sure what that amount will be spent on?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay. Oops. Next is approval of minutes. I'd like to move we approve the minutes of our regular monthly meeting on Thursday, September 28th, as presented.
Second.
Any corrections, adjustments, suggestions? Hearing none. All those in
Great
favor?
minutes.
Oh, okay.
No, great minutes.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now, do you have anything, or you just a
I
fill?
didn't have it, I am just filling in for Beth. She did
Okay.
not provide me anything specific that she wanted to say.
No problem. Just be prepared the next time. You get one free pass. That's fine. Okay, liaison reports. Amity, A lot of interesting stuff at our last meeting. They did in fact change the bylaw. And again, as I said to you, as long as I get the information on a timely basis and it's transparent, I'm not, the thing they were really hung up about is if all 3 towns were to vote against their budget, they were required by their bylaws to report it to the newspapers. And they didn't like that, so they took it out. And I said to them, you could take it out, but I'll tell you right now, if all 3 town finance chairs vote against your budget, it's going to be in the newspaper.
Yes, it
So,
will.
if it makes you happy, as long as I continue to get the package and it makes sense, I'm good with that. And a few other minor adjustments, nothing earth-shattering, so that did take place. As far as the current year, they're already, and this is, just this is the way it happens, as salaries change and personnel changes and contracts come in, they're currently at a $776,000 surplus, which would be 3 months. Now again, it always happens that it's at the very beginning, so, but again, being a regional school district, they do budget, I think, very carefully, because if it were a $776,000 deficit, they'd have to come back to the towns for money, so they do conservatively budget, but we're made aware of it, which is what I'm talking about. One item, for example, where they're over, is their health insurance. They have that self-insurance, and as of September, they have a $280,000 surplus in the budget to the actual claims. So they're doing well as far as the personnel goes, health-wise. So, but the most interesting part of the meeting was the October 1st enrollment report, which is where they base our next year's contribution, and that of Orange and Bethany too, to Amity. Now, every indication I had was that we were going to be going up, and we were going to be paying more, and as it turns out, Woodbridge has 7 less kids, Orange has 2 less kids, and Bethany has 13 less. It doesn't seem like much, but with a 0% budget increase, Bethany will save $188,176, Woodbridge will save $6,273, and Orange will have $194,448 increase, which, needless to say, did not thrill Orange. But I mean, this is the way a regional school district doesn't look like. I mean, it's 13-2. Orange had the least amount of fewer kids, but because of the way that the formula works, they get hammered. So they're already starting to make noise. They're talking about not only doing it on October 1st, which is a state statute. We could do it. I got an email today. I didn't have a chance to read it. They're going to try and do it more often, but that's not going to happen. So, another interesting part of it is, and again, Dr. Dumais still insists that we're going to eventually get caught, but I looked at this quickly. For example, Woodbridge, the outgoing or the current 12th grade class at Amity is 123 kids. Our 6th grade class at Beecher is 112. So if 123 go out and 112 come in, that's a reduction of 11. Bethany, 12th grade is 67, 6th grade 57, a reduction of 10.
Wow.
Orange, their outgoing 12th grade class is 171, and their incoming 6th grade class is 184. So an increase of 13. And that applies to the 5th grade. For us, and I mean, our 5th grade class will be a little bit. So I don't know where this is all going to come, or where it's all going to end up. Obviously, all the kids coming from 6th grade don't necessarily go to Amity,
right.
but
Right.
even without that, the raw numbers look like,
And there can be families that move in who have high school age kids too, so it can go both ways.
So, yeah, but it's honestly, I was with all that's going on, I was fearful that we were going to get clobbered next year in Amity.
Yeah.
Just the opposite.
But our percentage, I mean, even if the numbers go up and down, our relative percentage position in connection with Bethany and Orange doesn't change dramatically.
No.
That's really the
Yep.
bigger issue, right?
Yep. So that's where we're at. And so, one more year out of the way, one more year without a... And again, I mean, if the surplus keeps up, we should get another chunk of money, so we'll see what happens. Paul?
Not a whole lot to report from PD, but we did have the new 9/11 system go in place September 26th, I think it is. It has some nice new technologies, text messages to 9/11, this kind of thing. Some of our staff need to be trained, which is fully funded by the state.
Really?
I don't know how they can afford it, but they're doing it. And of course, they're preparing for the budget this year. They need some vehicles replaced, computer replacement, and a little bit of remodeling here and there. So that's what we can expect in the capital budget.
Personnel-wise, they're holding their own?
They're holding their own. We had a new officer sworn in recently. Sanchez, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Thank you. Susan, anything?
Fire Commission canceled its meeting of last week. The only thing I would say is Tuesday night, they're having truck or treat. They're expecting 3,000 people. They're going to close the road. There's fireworks. Just everybody be careful.
Okay. Tammy?
Okay, the Library Commission met on October 10th, and there are two fundraising events that are important for people to know about. The first, I've mentioned these before, is mini golf. They're going to have actually at the library on November 2nd and 3rd, and they're encouraging people as individuals to come or families. This has been very successful at other libraries, the way it's set up. And the second event is kind of a mini book fair on December 2nd from 10 to 2 p.m. And these are basically special sale of special books, like art books, leather-bound classics, some graphic novels for adults. And so these will be more expensive than their regular sales, but these will make good holiday gifts for people. They did actually hire a part-time children's librarian, and they are experiencing some, I guess, facilities issues. One of their boilers totally went out of commission. And there will be an installation within the next couple of weeks, and the entire system, though, needs to be retooled. The plan is to proceed with the HVAC and humidity issues, and I just wanted to confirm, Tony, with you that the money for the actual fix to that system is going to come from the town, not from the library budget.
So the money for the study to
Yes.
fix the system came from the Noyes D. Clark fund that the investment committee has responsibility
Right.
over.
Right.
That was 25,000, somewhere around there, 27,000.
Mm-hmm.
The fund probably has $250,000 left in it.
Okay.
So whether the fix comes from there or from the town,
Okay.
I guess is
That's
up to
fine.
this
It
board.
was just an issue of, do they need to put it in their budget? And there was their understanding that they did not need to do that.
Worst case
So-
scenario, I don't know how much it is.
I don't either.
They
We have to
don't
get
know.
that. That's the whole point of that.
We've been
Yeah.
talking about this
Right.
noise fund, noise
Okay.
Clark
Yeah.
fund.
Yeah.
It's there, I mean, the purpose of it is for the benefit of the library.
Right, and you just have to keep the principal, which I
Yeah.
think was 40,000
Yeah.
when it was started.
Right.
But this has been in their capital budget.
It has
For a year.
for a
It's been-
long time.
It's just
Yeah,
been a placeholder, nobody knew the amount, but
Correct.
we've been aware that this is coming
Yeah,
down. the
that's
pipe.
absolutely
Right.
correct. Yeah,
But they've removed it from their capital budget
Last year?
request, understanding that the
Oh,
town
this year.
in some way,
Upcoming.
yes, yes.
I'd like to put it in the
should
budget, but
still
just
have it
maybe
in there.
identify. Yeah,
Of course.
So then you should
I'll contact
communicate
him, yeah.
that to Eric, because right now it's not in there.
yeah, okay.
No, it should be in there.
Yeah.
It's been in the building maintenance budget.
Oh, they put it in the building maintenance. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's
Okay,
fine.
thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
Okay. And one other change I had shared, that the Lion Libraries had contracted with a group called Riverbend to do their delivery service, and that's actually been going really, really well. Patrons are no longer limited to 5 holds, which is what they had under the state delivery system, and they're getting 3 deliveries a week, averaging about 5 bins each day, which is a great improvement over what it was before. Okay.
Can I ask Sandy one
Yeah,
question?
sure.
Is this mini golf fundraiser indoors?
Yes, it's in the library.
Oh, it's in the library.
It's actually physically inside the library because when you think about it, you know, the rows are perfect where the shelving is to kind of shoot your ball.
Do they have like,
Do they have a window?
right?
I don't know if they have a window.
That's what I was
But,
thinking.
you know, they're getting
Yeah, the big
sponsorships
clown
for
though.
people to sponsor holes, and so it
That's
should be
lovely.
a lot of fun.
Oh, very nice.
A lot of fun.
Oh.
So
Do you
yes,
still have
it's
to be
inside.
quiet during mini?
No, you don't. You don't. Okay, and then the Woodbridge Board of Ed Finance Committee met on that same evening, and they currently have a deficit projected for $338,000, which includes a deficit from special ed of $235,000, and the other remainder is basically from the medical insurance, the benefits. Again, they will try their best to really whittle away at this, but again, their budget is based on what they know in February, and well, actually before then, but it changes between then and the end of the year in terms of children coming in, children coming out, and it's not predictable from that perspective. So again, this is based on what they know. I am also a member of the SRO committee, and they did actually send out a survey to parents and to staff. The response rates were really not as high as what they would have liked to have seen, because that would have helped to make the decision a little more easily about what to recommend. There were 1,013 surveys sent out. 123 of those were to staff, and 890 were to parents. And the response rate for staff was 46%. The response rate for parents was 24%. So based on the responses, there was not a clear mandate for one particular option. And the survey just had 4 questions on it, so it was very simple to complete. And the option of continuing with the SRO was one of the options, continuing with a retired police officer who can therefore be armed was the other, and then having no security. The only thing that was clear is, at least from the parents' perspective, they would like some presence of a police officer. And it was really kind of split between the SRO and a retired police officer. The staff, the percentage who were in favor of maintaining an SRO or security presence was much lower than it was for the parents, which is kind of understandable since it was presented that any additions to our budget means that we need to reduce somewhere else, and that means staff. So what was actually recommended to the board, and this has been presented at this point, was that they continue with the SRO position. And one of the reasons for this is that getting a better understanding of what type of services the police department could provide if the person was not a member of the police department, and the fact that this is the most populated area in town, aside from Amity, that does have a police officer, that there really needed to be some presence there. And there are some advantages, I should say, from the committee's perspective, significant advantages from an education perspective. The value of the SRO being a member of the police department and being connected into what is happening with families in town, the type of relationship it builds with the children, and they will actually go back to the summer programs and let them know that if they would like to have a resource officer or a retired policeman there, that they will have to pay for that over the summer. They'll have to figure out a way within their fee structure to cover that. The cost of an SRO officer is $125,000. The summer months would be $28,000. So that would reduce the amount of money. And they will probably come back to the town and basically discuss any kind of shared funding opportunities for community policing, given the fact that this is an area where there are the most number of people concentrated compared to any other place in the town. So that recommendation was made to the Board of Ed. The superintendent is actually building a budget around an SRO officer salary. And the final decision will be made based on what the budget looks like, because that's what the Board of Ed will approve. Okay?
Anything else?
No?
Anything else, Tom?
Nope.
Motion adjourned.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
See you in 3 weeks, I guess. No, it'll be the 16th, I believe.
16th, yeah.
That's
That is 3 weeks.
right. 3 weeks from this Thursday.
Yep.
Okay. Have a good night, everyone.